Welcome in one and all. My name is Regan Boyce, aka Pink Demon, and this is Fresh Shave, where we look at new music releases and give some first impression reviews. Just, see how it's landing in those first initial weeks before we've really had time to mature with the album. And today I am looking at Lamb of God Into Oblivion, not to be confused with the upcoming Venom Into Oblivion, both using that same album name. Is there some sort of horrible world situation that's causing a lot of people to think we're slipping into some sort of end times? I don't know. I don't read the news. But what I do, what I do is I listen to the music and I give my opinions on it. Now, I've been away for Lamb of God for a hot minute, so it was kind of exciting and refreshing to come back into it. I like how they promoted this album in the lead up. There was like a kind of almost a little ARG element to it, and it really got me hooked into it. So this is probably the first time I've really been engaged with Lamb of God probably since Resolution came out. I really did not like Sturm and Drang, so I kind of fell off then. Didn't really check out the self-titled, didn't really check out Omens. Getting back into it now. I guess the reason I stayed away is kind of post Randy going to jail in another country. The way they matured, I wasn't a big fan of. It took a lot of what I enjoyed about Lamb of God out of the music, and I don't blame him for maturing the way he did. He went through a pretty traumatic thing, but yeah, it's a problem of listening to any band over a long period of time. You're always going to have the chance that you mature in one direction and the band matures in another, and that's just how it went with Lamb of God. Still love their old stuff, especially Wrath and Ashes of the Wake, but yeah, just never really glued with any of their new stuff. Now, I kind of got a bit excited about Into Oblivion because people were calling it a regression. People were saying that it lacked growth that the other albums had. A lot of things that seemed to be insulting, the things that I didn't like about it anyway. So when people are like, "Oh no, it's a step backwards," I'm like, "Good, good." Like their heydays are backwards. All right, let's step backwards. Let's jog backwards. So I think it's actually a step in the right direction, and it does still have that maturity in it, to be sure. And there's only one song, Elvatio. I'm gonna go with Elvatio, that I would say has that matured sound completely, fully detached from what they were originally, and I hate it for it. Actually, it's in the middle of the album. It slams on the brakes of the album's pacing. It kills any of the joy that it has building back. Don't worry, it picks up again immediately with St. Catherine's Wheel. But yeah, I think this shows that maturing is a misstep for Lamb of God. Musically, like lyrically, thematically, definitely you need to mature. Otherwise, you end up like Korn and you're still writing angsty 14-year-old lyrics, 30 years into your career. It's kind of embarrassing. But I don't think the riff needed to mature. I don't think that needed to slow down and get more serious. What happened to the anthems? That's the problem that I've had with Lamb of God over the last decade or so. Is like, what happened to the anthem? You can't just write, Walk With Me in Hell or Redneck on every album. But it's been, well over a decade since we've had a Walk With Me or a Redneck. Why not go back to that? And hey, age might be a thing. I've got friends my own age who are realizing that they can't play like they did in their 20s, even now that they're in their 30s. Maybe those faster songs are actually pretty punishing to write and play live. But they have shown on this album that you can still slow down the pace and have it sound pretty good. 1,000 Years, the second last track that I think should be the end track if I had my hands on the track ordering. It has a huge tie back to those Pantera style groove metal roots. So I think you can slow it down and still have it sound pretty awesome. But as I said, I probably would have swapped the last two tracks. In fact, maybe even pushed Divide Destroy much earlier. I think it's a really strong, high energy song. I think it does a lot of what I want in Lamb of God. I think that's probably going to be my favourite song of the album after a few more listens. But that's where I am right now. First listen, I was feeling really positive about this. Vatio, the only song I didn't like. Repeat listens, kind of cements it in that pretty good place. It's definitely not redefining them or, giving them a new peak, but it's a good Lamb of God album. Probably not as good as Resolution, but definitely the best thing since Resolution, I would say. I think what it really lacks, and what Lamb of God really lack at the moment, it's just, yeah, a banger. They haven't had a hit song, a good single that really becomes a live fixture for the rest of the time in such a long time. And I get that most of those come in your formative years, but it just feels like really weird that they haven't been able to hit even one in a decade. And maybe other people would, say I'm wrong about that. But even when I go to like their Spotify top 10 songs, which I don't know exactly how the formula works, but I know it has to do with the number of plays it's getting and the recency of the song. It's factored in like that. Laid to Rest is at the top, Redneck is second. All the new songs are in the top 10 because they've got that recency factor coming into it. The Walk With Me in Hell is obviously in there. The only song that is not from Sacrament, Ashes, or Oblivion is Memento Mori, and that's from their self-titled. So maybe I need to go back to their self-titled, spend a bit more time with that. Maybe that's got that hidden banger that I'm looking for. But I think besides that, it kind of proves my point that Lamb of God are, 15 to 20 years past their peak. And they're still great, and their influence is undeniable. But I just feel like they're not living up to their own legacy. And I want them to. I love Lamb of God. Lamb of God were the second band I ever saw. The first show I ever went to was Metallica at Rod Laver Arena, and the opening bands were Baroness and then Lamb of God. And Baroness were cool. I was like, oh yeah, this is vibey. I can get into this. There was not even 1,000 people in the arena for Baroness, and they were just playing in front of like a stack of amps on one side of the 360 stage. They were so young. It's so cool to see where they are now from then. But then Lamb of God came in, and I didn't realize that metal could be like this. At this point, I was still just listening to like Metallica and Disturbed. Lamb of God were really that first like step across the line into anything approaching extreme metal for me. And when all the stadium lights went red and they did Walk With Me in Hell, I was enamored. I'm like, wow, this is what live music can be. That was probably that first hit. Even before Metallica took the stage, it was Walk With Me in Hell, and the live presentation they did for it and the lighting and everything. I'm like, holy shit, this is live music. So Lamb of God are dear in my heart, and I just want them to be my number one band and put out consistently good albums filled with great songs that make them my number one band. But every time I listen to it, I'm like, man, you guys used to be more fun. We used to have a lot of energy and good times together, and now it seems like you guys have lost that energy. If it feels like I'm struggling to find things to say, you're not wrong. It's just certainly one of the Lamb of God albums of all time. It's kind of unnotable. Besides having a bit more pep in their step and, regressing to a bit more of a simple song structure, it's really nothing new for the band. They haven't progressed anywhere. I guess that's the core problem here, is that they haven't fully regressed to the point where I'm like, holy shit, it's just like peak Lamb of God, but they haven't moved forward either, so I can't be like, oh wow, check out this cool stuff that they're doing. It's just what they've done before, but in a step in a direction that I like. So all in all, for a new fan, I probably wouldn't jump into this. Or, it's not the worst place to jump into, but you're better off still jumping into the classics. For existing fans, I reckon they'll enjoy this. Even the ones who are, kind of negative about it at first, I think they're going to come to enjoy this. The only people I think that might not enjoy this are, the people that really enjoyed the last few albums and thought that the kind of slowing down and maturing of Lamb of God's sound was a good thing, which I don't think it was. I probably blinded by nostalgia with my thick rose-tinted glasses on. But music's subjective, so if I enjoy the old stuff and I want to hear the old stuff, I'm going to come on here and say, hey, play the old stuff. And if you like the new stuff, good for you. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me, or if you think that, Lamb of God, we're in a good place and this is a misstep. And until next time, peace out.